Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking a trip to Buffalo, New York, and focusing our entire deep dive, all of our sources, all of our analysis on one immense historic residence.
The Clement House.
Exactly, the Clement House. It's this 17,000 square foot Gilded Age mansion, and it really is a physical artifact.
Right.
But when you start to peel back the layers of history, the bricks and mortar tell a much, much grander and sometimes, frankly, tragic story.
A story of American industrial wealth, incredible architectural ambition, and, well, a really surprising connection to two U.S. presidents.
That's the part that really got me.
Oh, absolutely. So the Clement House at 786 Delaware Avenue is our lens today. And the mission here isn't just to, appreciate the architecture. It's to understand its life cycle.
From beginning to end.
From beginning to, well, to today. We're tracing its lineage from this multi-million-dollar private commission to a monument for a dream that was cut short.
And then analyzing its ultimate legacy.
Right, how it transitions from a symbol of, really, exclusivity into this dynamic, shared administrative center for the American Red Cross and the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. It's quite a journey.
It truly is a remarkable case study in how wealth transforms, and I think more importantly, how architecture survives. So just to ground us.
The basic facts.
The basic facts. We're talking about a house completed in 1913. The design was handled by Edward Broadhead Green of the highly influential firm Green and Wicks.
A huge name in Buffalo at the time.
And the property has been recognized since 1974 as a vital contributing element to the Delaware Avenue Historic District.
So it was protected, in a way.
It is now, yes. We
Yeah.
have history, we have high finance, and we have these incredible political connections all wrapped up in one very, very large package.
So to start, I think we have to understand the patrons, because this house is a direct reflection of their financial status and their, ambition.
Right. Who were they?
The home was commissioned by Stephen Merrill Clement and his wife, Carolyn Jewett Clement.
And Stephen was a big deal in Buffalo.
A towering figure, a major industrialist, and, critically, the president of the Marine National Bank at the turn of the century.
And when we talk about Gilded Age wealth in cities like Buffalo, it's often tied to infrastructure and finance, right?
Exactly. The Erie Canal, grain storage, the rail lines, they all made Buffalo a crucial hub.
And so if you're the president of a bank like Marine National, you aren't just managing money.
No. You are the nexus of that regional power. Stephen Clement's wealth was foundational. It was tied directly to the economic engine of Western New York.
So he was the money.
He was the money. And while Stephen represented that, accumulated wealth and power, Carolyn Jewett Clement brought the land pedigree.
Ah, okay, so the location.
The location. This site, 786 Delaware Avenue, it wasn't just raw land. It had a deep history.
What was there before?
Before the 1913 mansion, the property was occupied by the Tripp residence, a structure that dated all the way back to 1855.
Wow, 1855. So that was a historic home in its own right.
It was. It was originally built by a man named Erastus S. Prosser.
Okay, so the Clements weren't building on an empty plot. They were. What? Performing an architectural upgrade on land that was already established by the previous generation of Buffalo elite.
That's a great way to put it. Carolyn's father, Augustus Franklin Tripp, purchased that 1855 residence in 1881.
And so she inherited it.
She inherited the residence and the very prestigious address when he died in 1908.
And this is where that Gilded Age sensibility you mentioned really kicks in.
It really does. And inheriting a house built in 1855 was, perfectly fine. But by 1911, it simply didn't project the scale of success that Stephen Clements, president of Marine National, needed to project.
It was too small, too old.
All of the above.
Yeah.
The house was old, the style was probably seen as hopelessly outdated, and the footprint was likely insufficient for their rapidly accumulating capital and, just as important, their social demands.
Right. You need a place to entertain, to show off the wealth.
You need a palace.
So they made the definitive choice of that era.
Tear it down.
Just level it.
In 1911, the Clements commissioned what our sources describe as a palatial new residence.
And that's when they brought in the big-name architect.
Stephen's friend, actually.
Yeah.
Architect Edward Broadhead Green, to design the monument. This really highlights a generational shift. Out with the old, however historic, and in with the bold, new statement.
And it's interesting where they were living just before this massive project.
Right, they weren't, camping out in the old Tripp residence after the inheritance.
No, they were living at Stephen's late father's home down the street at 737 Delaware Avenue.
Which gave them the freedom to completely level the site at 786.
And oversee the construction of a custom-designed masterpiece without the inconvenience of moving twice.
It signifies a very strategic, very planned consolidation of status.
And now we have to talk about the price tag because it helps us truly grasp the magnitude of the statement they were making.
It's a number that's hard to wrap your head around, even now.
The sources confirmed the Clement house cost $300,000 to erect.
In 1913.
In 1913 dollars. That sum is genuinely staggering.
So let's put that into perspective for you. $300,000 in 1913 is the equivalent of approximately $8.5 million today.
8.5.
Million.
Just for the construction cost.
It's just to build it.
That excludes the land value, which on Delaware Avenue would have been immense. It excludes the furnishings, the art collections needed to fill those 17,000 square feet.
So it was a commitment to the absolute zenith of luxury.
This wasn't merely a house. This was capital expenditure designed to last for centuries, to cement the Clement name in Buffalo history forever.
But this immense investment in permanence, it's undercut by a profound piece of personal tragedy.
It really is.
As you analyze this incredible cost and ambition, you have to look at the timeline of Stephen Merrill Clement's life.
And this is the heartbreak at the core of the Clement house's story.
What happened?
Stephen Merrill Clement died on March 26, 1913.
The same year the house was finished.
He was on vacation in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The house was not completed until later that same year. So, wait. He invested the equivalent of $8.5 million of his fortune into this dream, this ultimate symbol of his success as a banker and industrialist.
And he never set foot inside the finished structure.
He never saw it.
He never saw the final rendering of his own legacy.
Oh, that's just brutal.
It forces us to shift our perspective on the house entirely.
Yeah, it's not a celebration anymore.
No. The Clement house ceased being a celebration of Stephen's success and instantly became a monumental, very expensive tombstone for his dream.
And for his widow, Carolyn.
Imagine. Carolyn, his widow, moved into a palatial residence that represented immense personal effort and financial sacrifice from her late husband, but which he never ever got to enjoy.
That detail just adds this powerful layer of poignancy and fragility to the whole concept of Gilded Age wealth.
It does. You can achieve everything, commission the greatest monument, and still lose the one thing money cannot buy.
Time.
Time.
And that really sets the stage for Carolyn's role in the house's subsequent history. She was now the sole owner, living inside this grand, bittersweet monument.
Exactly. And that detail is absolutely essential as we move into the building itself. So let's turn our attention to the physical reality of those 17,000 square feet. This is a residence designed for a specific purpose.
It's not just a big house. It has a function.
A very specific function. To facilitate the social, business, and cultural life of a family at the absolute apex of regional power.
And the sources say it had 20 rooms in total.
20 rooms, but those numbers only start to hint at the internal organization.
When you look at the floor plan, you start to understand the functional hierarchy of the era.
Yes, the architecture dictates the social routine. The ground floor was entirely dedicated to the public face of the Clements.
It had to be impressive, functional, and formal.
That's where we find the spaces that facilitated Stephen's status as a banker and an elite member of society. You have the essential formal rooms, a large reception room for greeting and screening guests.
Screening guests, I like that.
Oh, absolutely. And a substantial library.
Yeah.
And the library, it wasn't just for reading.
No, that was a power room.
It was often used for private business meetings, closing deals, or serious discussions away from the public eye. After the house was repurposed for the Red Cross, these spaces easily converted into conference rooms.
Which demonstrates their inherent functional formality. They were built for business.
Exactly.
And the small, specific details are what truly bring the luxury to life. The sources mention the inclusion of specialty spaces, like a dedicated wardrobe room.
Which sounds a little innocuous, doesn't it? A wardrobe room. But it speaks volumes about the level of required social engagement.
What do you mean?
A wardrobe room is an indicator of a constant formal life. When you're attending multiple society dinners, balls, institutional events every single week, you require an extensive and specialized wardrobe.
It goes way beyond simple closet space.
Way beyond.
Huh.
This room was a logistical necessity for maintaining the constant cycle of formal appearances. It indicates a life lived in the highest echelon of Buffalo society. You needed staff just to manage the clothes.
But if we're going to identify the singular passion of the Clements,
Hmm.
or maybe Carolyn's ongoing commitment after Stephen's death, we have to look at the music room.
The music room.
This is the architectural centerpiece, and honestly, this is where the sources get really interesting.
Indeed, this space was not an afterthought. It was an entire wing of the house.
An entire wing.
The music room consumed the entire left side of the house.
Get out. The whole side.
The whole side. We're talking about a room that measured a staggering 1,040 square feet. That's nearly 100 square meters.
That is bigger than my entire apartment. That is bigger than many modern family homes today.
By a lot.
And think about what it takes to dedicate that amount of floor space and ceiling height purely to music. This demonstrates an almost institutional commitment to patronage.
It wasn't a piano tucked in the corner.
No, it was a private concert hall.
And the contents of the room confirm this level of dedication.
What was in there?
The room housed not one, but two Steinway grand pianos,
Two of them.
a harp, and a built-in pipe organ.
A pipe organ. Okay, that's the next level. A pipe organ is a permanent fixture.
It is. It requires specialized structure, dedicated air bellows. It represents a final, irremovable commitment to musical performance and acoustics.
So this space likely attracted local musicians.
Possibly even touring artists passing through Buffalo. It established the Clements as major cultural patrons.
And this space was designed for sound, for performance, and for the public display of cultural refinement.
Which was an essential duty of the newly wealthy in the Gilded Age. You proved your worth not just by the size of your bank account, but by the quality of the culture you could bring into your home.
Now, despite all the modernity and the sheer scale of the new construction, the Clements did something interesting. They demonstrated a unique, conscious reverence for the site's history.
The heritage of fireplace.
Yes. This detail provides a beautiful counterpoint to the ruthlessness of demolishing the old house.
They salvaged the fireplace from the drawing room of the original 1855 Tripp residence
Carolyn's childhood home.
and consciously installed it in the master bedroom of the new house.
That is a fascinating psychological choice.
It really is. They erased the physical structure, but they insisted on incorporating this one specific symbolic anchor, a piece of the family's past tenure on that land.
It's a very tangible way of, mitigating total erasure?
I think so. Ensuring that the new monument wasn't seen as entirely rootless, but connected, however faintly, to the history of the property.
It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes. Now, zooming out to the house's total structure, the floor plan was designed not just for entertaining, but for enforcing the strict social hierarchy of the time.
Oh, absolutely. The organization of the three main floors is a perfect architectural diagram of class separation.
So the family bedrooms were on the second floor.
Logically, yes. On the private second floor, maximizing comfort and distance from the public-facing first floor.
But the segregation is starkly illustrated by the third floor.
The third floor.
The entire top floor, spanning the entire breadth of the house, was dedicated exclusively to the servants' quarters.
A house of this size, 20 rooms, 17,000 square feet, built for constant entertaining, required a large staff.
You'd need cooks, maids, footmen.
Possibly a private secretary, the organist, or a music tutor. The sheer number of people required to maintain the Clements lifestyle necessitated dedicating an entire floor to their housing,
And that physical separation.
placing the staff out of sight and generally out of mind.
That is the clearest manifestation of Gilded Age social stratification built directly into the structure of the home. To truly appreciate why the Clement house survived and stands today, we have to look at its immediate surroundings. The house was built right in the heart of the Delaware Avenue Historic District.
An area known for both its architectural ambition and its intense volatility.
Right. Edward Broadhead Green was the right architect for the job, known for his refined Gilded Age designs. But the neighborhood was a constantly shifting landscape of status and demolition.
That volatility is crucial context. Wealthy families in Buffalo were constantly trying to one-up their neighbors. The Clement house was a massive modern replacement for an older home.
But its survival becomes even more miraculous when you look next door.
At 776 Delaware Avenue, the Gratwick House.
The fate of the Gratwick House is a genuine architectural tragedy, and you have to understand it to really contextualize the Clement house's survival.
You do. The Gratwick House was torn down in 1919.
1919, that's just 6 years after the $300,000 Clement house was completed next door.
Just 6 years. And this wasn't just another old residence. The Gratwick House was arguably one of the most significant pieces of architecture in the entire city.
Why is that? What was it?
It was a Richardsonian Romanesque mansion designed by the legendary Henry Hobson Richardson.
Okay, for our listeners who might not be immersed in architectural history, why is Henry Hobson Richardson considered such a giant of American architecture? What does Richardsonian Romanesque even mean?
Richardson essentially defined the aesthetic of American architecture in the late 19th century. He was a true titan. His style, Richardsonian Romanesque, is characterized by monumental scale, heavy rusticated stonework.
So, like rough-hewn granite.
Exactly. Brownstone or rough-hewn granite. Massive rounded arches, deep-set windows, and an overall sense of powerful, rugged permanence.
His buildings feel heavy, grounded.
Very grounded. His buildings, like the Trinity Church in Boston or the Allegheny County Courthouse, are foundational to American architectural identity. He was the master of synthesizing European Romanesque traditions with American practical needs.
So, to clarify, the Gratwick House was a masterpiece in this style, designed by the man who defined it.
It was more than that. The sources specifically highlight that the Gratwick House was Richardson's last commission.
His last one.
His last one. It was designed in 1886, just before his death, and subsequently completed in 1888 by Shepley, Rutan, and Coolidge, the firm that carried on his practice. It represented the endpoint of a monumental career, an architectural legacy structure.
Yet, despite this incredible pedigree, the final commission of an architectural master, it was erased just 31 years after its completion.
And only 6 years after the Clements finished their grand statement next door.
That is the brutal lesson of Gilded Age cities, isn't it?
It is. Architectural significance often loses out to economic utility or changing family needs. The Gratwick House was demolished because the new owners, or perhaps the estate after the family moved on, decided the land was worth more than the structure.
Or they just preferred a totally different type of development.
Right. It shows that even structures of national importance could be temporary in the face of shifting wealth and development pressure in a boomtown like Buffalo.
It almost makes the Clement House's decision to tear down the 1855 Tripp House look quaint in comparison.
It does. The Clements were just replacing an outdated house with a new one. The erasure of the Gratwick House was the loss of a national landmark.
And it perfectly illustrates the environment the Clement House was born into. It was surrounded by this rapid cycle of creation and destruction.
And the Clement House survived where the Gratwick House failed. And as we established earlier, that survival hinged less on its architectural style, relative to Richardson's work, and more on a single, crucial, philanthropic decision made by Carolyn Clement decades later.
Let's transition now to the human connections, because the story isn't just about Buffalo. The Clement family used this massive structure to solidify their place in society, and in doing so, they literally connected themselves by marriage to one of the most enduring political dynasties in American history.
This connection is so often missed when you focus solely on the architecture, but it's absolutely critical for understanding the reach of American elite families.
So, Stephen and Carolyn Clement had 6 children.
Right, but we focus on the youngest, Stuart Holmes Clement, who lived from 1895 to 1974.
And Stuart made the connection official. In 1911, right as the new house was being designed and constructed, Stuart married Margaret Livingston Bush.
The timing is important.
Yeah.
The marriage coinciding with the height of the family's architectural ambition.
It's a power move.
A huge one. And this marriage wasn't just a local affair. It was the consolidation of different forms of wealth. Margaret Livingston Bush was not from Buffalo banking. She was from the industrial and financial power base of the East Coast.
Who was her father?
She was the daughter of Samuel Prescott Bush, a major Ohio industrialist and railroad executive.
A titan in his own right.
Absolutely. And tracing that lineage forward reveals the jaw-dropping political impact. Margaret was the sister of a future U.S. Senator.
Prescott Sheldon Bush.
Prescott Sheldon Bush, who was a significant figure in Connecticut politics and finance for decades.
And this is where we need to trace the bloodline clearly for the listener, because it's a bit of a bombshell.
It really is. Margaret Livingston Bush Clement, the woman who married into the family building this magnificent house, was the direct paternal aunt of George Herbert Walker Bush.
The 41st president of the United States.
The very same.
Wait, let me just absorb that for a moment. So a massive $300,000 mansion built by a regional banker in Buffalo, designed to symbolize local commercial power, is essentially part of the extended family network that produced a sitting U.S. senator, a CIA director, a vice president, and a president.
Precisely. The house is directly connected by marriage.
And it doesn't stop there.
No. If we continue the lineage, Margaret was, of course, the great-aunt of President George W. Bush.
The 43rd president.
Yes. The Buffalo banking elite was not siloed. They were intermarrying with the national, industrial, and political aristocracy of families like the Bushes and the Walkers.
It's such a powerful illustration of the way the American elite operates. Regional economic hubs like Buffalo generate immense localized wealth.
And that wealth then seeks to solidify its status through marriage into established or rapidly ascending political and dynastic families elsewhere.
So the Clement House became an ancestral node linking Buffalo's industrial past to America's national political future.
It adds an enormous layer of historical significance to the building itself. When Carolyn Clement moved in, she wasn't just a widow living in a large house. She was the matriarch of a family that was actively intertwining its roots with the nation's future political leadership.
The house only holds national weight, not just regional.
Absolutely.
This realization is why a deep dive into a single street address can be so enlightening. You start with architecture and end up tracing the lines of power that shaped the entire 20th century.
The house, in a sense, represents the marriage certificate between finance and political destiny. So the story of the Clement House takes its final, definitive turn due to the immense philanthropy of Carolyn Jewett Clement.
The woman who inherited this monumental but, as we discussed, ultimately melancholy project.
This is the moment where the house shifts from a private monument to a public utility, and that shift is what ensures its survival.
Carolyn was clearly dedicated to giving back. It sort of reflects that later stage Gilded Age ethos that massive wealth carried civic responsibility.
It does. We know she had already been a major donor. She'd given $80,000 to the University of Buffalo and endowed a chair at Yale University. She understood the power of leveraging wealth for institutional stability.
And her most impactful local decision came in June of 1941.
A very significant year. With the United States preparing for entry into World War II, Carolyn donated the Clement House to the Western New York chapter of the American Red Cross.
That timing, 1941, is incredibly important.
It's everything.
It placed the house directly into the service of a massive humanitarian effort during a period of national crisis. It immediately shifted the building's public perception from an ostentatious symbol of wealth to a vital center for community service.
It's likely secured its status and local affection for decades to come.
For sure.
It did. The building became informally known simply as the Red Cross Building. The sheer size and layout of the mansion, with its reception rooms, conference rooms, and ample administrative space, made it an ideal headquarters for a large regional organization.
And they took care of it.
They did. The sources note that the residence underwent a significant restoration in 1999, which illustrates the long-term institutional commitment to maintaining the structure's historic integrity, even while maximizing its utility.
So the Red Cross occupied the property for nearly 8 decades.
A very long time.
But the next major transaction, starting around 2017, completely redefined the use and ownership of the entire 4-acre plot, moving it into this unique shared campus model.
This brings us to modern Buffalo philanthropy, specifically a man named John Yurchuk. He's a local developer and philanthropist who co-owned Clement.
And in 2017, he purchased the entire property.
Which was viewed initially with some trepidation, given the history of demolition in the district, particularly the Gratwick House's fate.
People were probably worried he'd tear it down.
Exactly. But Yurchuk proved to be following Carolyn Clement's philanthropic playbook.
What did he do?
Immediately after the purchase, he executed a monumental gift. He donated the campus centerpiece, the Clement residence itself, to the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, the BPO.
As an outright gift.
An outright gift.
Wow. So that decision created a genuinely fascinating logistical and institutional scenario.
It did. The BPO and the Red Cross announced they would share the historic residence for their administrative staff.
So you now have 2 major, seemingly unrelated nonprofits, humanitarian aid and high culture sharing, a 17,000 square foot building originally designed for a single family.
And the way they share it is the best part.
The distribution of space is almost poetic when you consider the house's original hierarchy.
It really is. Let's look at the modern floor plan split. The Red Cross occupies a portion of the first floor, which includes the formal entry and conference spaces.
But also the entire 3rd floor.
The entire 3rd floor.
The former servants' quarters.
That's right. The humanitarian organization occupies the entire former servants' quarters. It's a wonderful irony.
The space once dedicated to the invisible labor force supporting the Clements' private luxury is now the nerve center for an organization dedicated to public aid and relief. That's incredible.
And meanwhile, the BPO administrative staff occupies the entire 2nd floor.
The space that was originally dedicated to the Clement family bedrooms.
So the family's private spaces are now managing the arts, while the staff quarters are managing humanitarian aid, and the main floor's foyer and reception rooms function as shared common areas.
So the architectural hierarchy of 1913 has been functionally flattened and repurposed into a collaborative community resource hub.
The house has literally internalized the concept of shared utility.
But the evolution of the property doesn't stop at the mansion's walls, right? We have to consider the rest of the 4-acre lot.
Right, the original estate was sprawling.
Yeah.
In 1979, long after the Red Cross took over, an office building and an adjoining structure, connected by an atrium, were built on the back portion of the plot, near the old carriage house and the parking lot.
And this brought a distinct, utilitarian 1970s aesthetic onto the historic land. It's quite a contrast.
And that complex was recently subject to another major transaction.
In 2018, yes. The rear complex, a substantial 53,500 square feet on 2.85 acres, was sold separately.
Two.
Best Self Behavioral Health, another nonprofit agency focused on mental and behavioral wellness, paid $3.15 million for that larger structure behind the mansion.
So the conclusion here is remarkable. What began as a single, highly exclusive private estate, a monument to Stephen Clement's ambition and wealth, has been segmented
Into a sophisticated, multi-organizational campus. Today, the entire footprint is dedicated to 3 distinct nonprofit organizations: the BPO, the Red Cross, and Best Self Behavioral Health.
The original $300,000 architectural statement now serves as a dynamic, layered symbol of sustained community utility in Buffalo.
It's an incredible evolution. #outro.
That journey from a single wealthy family's monumental dream to a shared administrative hub for the arts and humanitarian services is truly exceptional.
It really is. We started by exploring a tragic timeline. Stephen Clement never seeing his completed mansion. And we ended by tracing a profound political bloodline, all centered on one address, 786 Delaware Avenue.
And I think the Clement House provides an essential lesson. Historic structures are not preserved merely by accident or aesthetic merit.
Right. It's not just because they're pretty.
No. They are living, evolving assets that survive based on their ability to be continually repurposed by changing economic and critically philanthropic forces.
Carolyn Clement's decision to donate the house in 1941 was an act of practical immortality.
That's a great way to put it. She ensured the structure's future through utility rather than preservation alone.
And when you consider that the house was literally connected to the political destiny of the Bush family, and yet its ultimate purpose was serving local Buffalo communities, it just emphasizes the complex, intersecting layers of history that exist in every city.
And this raises an important final question for you, the listener, to mull over as you view the built environment in your own community.
Yeah.
We spend time detailing the ruthless demolition of the 1855 Tripp residence to make way for the Clement House. More profoundly, we noted the erasure of the 1888 Gratwick House, a structure of national architectural importance designed by H. Richardson just 6 years after the Clement House was finished.
A huge loss.
A monumental loss. The Clement House survived through strategic donation and function. So the question is, what criteria truly determines which pieces of history are preserved and which are erased for the next ambitious project? The difference between a landmark and a parking lot is often just one family's civic impulse, or perhaps the perfect timing of a nonprofit organization needing a new headquarters.
That's the layered history you can find when you take a deep dive into a single street address.